Welcome everyone to another episode of the All Systems Go podcast. I'm your host, Chris L. Davis, and I'm spoiled. Everybody should know this. I'm spoiled. I get to connect and interview with some of the sharpest minds in the space. And here's what I'll say. I make it my business to search out the minds regardless of the platform. See, many people, they go out and look for the person who's speaking the loudest on the loudest platform, and that's not always the best mind to tap into. So I was on LinkedIn, and I don't know how this happened, but I got connected with our guest today. And trust me when I say you all are in for a treat. I want to introduce you all to Irit Levy. She helps coaches, creatives, and consultants scale their businesses with process, strategy, software, and automation. So do you see how immediately when I read her bio, I said, wait a minute, I need to know this person. She has provided, watch this, everybody. She's provided 13,697 and counting software recommendations over the years, but at her core, she's about scalability, not software. How many times? How many times have you all heard me say the strategy is greater than the software? But let's just pause. Look at the specificity. 13,697. I love it. I love it. Okay. And her approach is different because she believes technology is just a tool. It's only as valuable as it is helpful. Irit, welcome to the podcast. Thank you for joining us. How are you doing?
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Chris. And now I'm just blushing. And okay, my day is perfect. I don't need to do anything else today. That's it. I
That's
can just
it.
put a big fat V on this day.
Yes, and I have to I mentioned it of course just a few minutes ago, but I don't recall how I got connected. You just know, like, sometimes LinkedIn's algorithm actually does work. It says, "Hey, I found somebody that talks about stuff that you talk about." And here's what was so refreshing about your LinkedIn feed. It was so personable and real. It did not feel, listen, if everybody is starting to have their radar up for like those chat GPT created posts, oh, it had no inkling of chat GPT. And the comments, people were so responsive and you were so conversational in them. But that's not it. That's not it, everybody. I haven't even told Irit this. So this is live on the podcast. I went, and as my nosy self does often, and I opted into your list, and I opted in under a secret email so you couldn't you couldn't modify my
I
journey.
don't track. I don't track
Oh
the
my
emails anyway,
goodness.
honestly.
Listen, you sent some emails that were so well written and resonated so strongly. Just talking about, hey, what tools should you be looking at? Hey, how about not focus on tools? Focus on this. Value is all I'll say, just continual value. So I was excited to have you on so that we could discuss automation beyond just marketing, right? What are the other areas that people can start to expand their expectations and what to expect with that? But I just wanted to share that insight to you and our listeners, that I've really enjoyed how you practice what you preach and how you put it on display in a way that's very authentic.
Thank you. So I'll be honest with you, I don't use ChatGPT. I don't use AI at
Mm.
all. I do have an email strategist. Her
Yes.
name is Yuval Ackerman. She is the best, and she teaches me so much about ethical marketing, and just we're
Nice.
so in tuned about that. But I don't use AI. I think AI has its place,
Hmm.
but if you cannot talk about what you do passionately without the help of AI, are you in the right space?
Mm.
I mean, that's just
Mm.
that's just me.
That's a good one. And I think that you also have to be mindful that with mass adoption comes mass abuse, right? So
Oh yeah.
so now, as it's becoming more common and just like, hey, use ChatGPT for this, Claude, this is and that. And I always know things are becoming more mainstream by the people who are using them. So when non-techies are really talking about AI and everything, you know that it's reaching mass adoption. And with that is not to be negative or derogatory, but a brainless approach at times. Just hey, let me do this. You be my brain, ChatGPT. And oh wow, that's nice. That's better than I would ever wrote it. Then put it in there. And it just lacks so much human element and connectivity. So yeah.
There are a few people that teach how to use it, and I think as a tool, again, like any tool, if you're using it to enhance your capabilities, if you're using it to improve your efficiency, your productivity, and it's serving you in
Yeah,
the best possible way, then it's the right tool for you. But if you're
absolutely.
not, and this is true of any tool, AI is no different. If it's making you sound robotic, if it's making you sound like the masses, then maybe it's not the right tool for you, or you need to learn how to use it better. One or the other.
Yep, I agree. And I'll say this, I my main everybody, this is not even an AI podcast, but just let me say this. My main use case that continues to serve me well is for brainstorming. Like, hey, come
Yes.
up with some ideas, but I don't like to let it flesh out the ideas, and because it usually does not go in a way that I would go.
Right.
And I just shared this on LinkedIn. I was saying I'm more of the antagonist to Chat GPT. Like I want you to tell me something, and then I want to write an article that's totally opposite. And that's
Oh, yeah.
it really
And by
helps
the
me.
way, there are there are tools that are better than ChatGPT, even
Oh yeah.
ChatGPT 4. You use Microsoft Copilot, you use Perplexity AI. Like there are tools out there today that can give you so much more
Yeah.
than the paid ChatGPT 4.0.
Yep.
And
Yep.
people just use what everybody else is using because their neighbor's sister's dog's child likes it. I don't know,
Yep.
whatever.
I agree.
Find the tool that's right for you.
Yes. So in that, I before I jump too deep in this, I want you to give our listeners a bird's eye view of your journey to where you're at right now, and where you're at, in my estimation, and just from us meeting, is somebody who comes into a business and really helps with process improvement. um, Whether it be through recommending new software, getting more out of the software that you're currently using. It's all about, do you have the proper setup to scale at whatever level you want? Now, but how did you get there? Was this like, as a child, you grew up thinking, I just want to make processes better? you know what
No, I
what
don't think
was
that was my
that?
little girl dream.
Right,
When
what
I
was
was
that
6, I wanted
moment?
to be a doctor, then I saw blood, so
Mm,
a doctor became out of the question very early. So, yeah. Um, so about 5 years before COVID hit, I was working for a startup. I
okay.
was a product owner there, and I discovered automations. I was an instructional design writer before, so, like, I
Got
knew
it.
how to organize data always. That's a God-given gift,
Nice.
but I didn't really know where it was going. And then about a year a year and a month before COVID hit, I gave in my final notice. Or no, a month before COVID hit. Sorry, a month before COVID hit, I gave my final notice. My last day of work was February 12th, 2020. February 15th, the world stopped. Now I have a government employee husband and family. Nobody thought of entrepreneurship. I mean, who does that at this day and age, right?
Yep.
But I was like, yeah, nobody's going to hire now. We're all remote. Like Zoom was just starting. The technology wasn't where it is today, 4 years later.
Yeah.
And so my husband said, okay, fine, go for it. I had $100 as my opening budget to give to my accountant. And I just started testing software and talking about how much
Mm.
I love it, how much, how it can change the world. Interestingly enough, I was talking about a piece of software and how much I hate it.
Mm.
And I was comparing it to other pieces of software and I found one that I loved. And then somebody wrote a post saying, "Who knows X piece of software that shall remain nameless that I don't like?" And 6 people tagged me. Now I hate it, but I know it. That
Yeah.
was the first dollar I earned.
Wow.
And it's we never know where it's coming from. And then as I grew, I realized, it's not about the tools. There are a lot of software automation experts out there.
Mm-hmm.
But most of them will focus on a tool. They're really good at ClickUp. They're really good at
Yeah.
Airtable. They're
Yeah.
really good at Monday.com, or they're HubSpot experts or Salesforce experts.
Mm-hmm.
Now, some tools require an expert, like Salesforce, like HubSpot, because they're monsters. But you go to them when you know that that's the tool. Finding the tool that's right for you is not based on whatever the specialist tells you. It's based on what your needs are. So if you go to a ClickUp specialist, they're going to tell you, "Oh, ClickUp can do it." That doesn't mean that it's the right tool for you.
Yes. Yes.
And that's where I sort of diverged from doing just no code, low code tool setup, and focused more on the workflow, understanding how it works, analyzing what you do, and then reassessing it and giving tips for improvement. Tips are not necessarily technological. They can be just, oh, let's
Mm-hmm.
just improve communication here in
Yeah.
this small spot.
Yeah. So in the instructional design prior to this, this was really about crafting that educational, that learning experience. And I would imagine you started to get some light UI UX mixed with some human
Oh yeah,
behavior and data and analytics. You started to kind of see all of that come together, and
yeah.
that you've I can feel it now, and it makes sense when I can ingest your content. I can see that. It's you're very responsible. You're very responsible in how you communicate to not give somebody a false positive or just spray what the industry is saying, you know.
Oh, the industry says so many things that are everybody's going to tool X right now, shall remain nameless, another tool
Mm-hmm.
that shall remain nameless, because they have such huge advertising, very invasive
Oh,
advertising.
yeah.
They're talking at conferences, they're promoting them, they're sponsoring them. And so everybody's converting to that tool. I tested the tool. It's not that great. It's not great for a lot of case studies.
Yep.
People also only think short term. It's cheap now. It can cover what I need now. I'll work
Yeah.
with it. But they're not thinking what happens in 2 years' time when I have to scale and I have to hire four more people or even two more people at the cost that it's going to cost me. And some of these tools are modular in their pricing. So you're paying another $5 for this, $5 for that. All of a sudden it adds up to $50 a month. And if you're hiring three more people, that's another $150 a month.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
So
And I think um looking at software through the scalability lens, it's a different skill because
yeah.
one, you have to have experience scale to even know at what points does this software no longer work. And then two, it is kind of tricky. You read like matching the software with the skill of the current client or their team. So it's like, you know what, this tool would be
Right.
perfect for you, but you would be lost if I took my hands off this thing. And so, therefore, let's use this tool. So it can be very, very challenging. Let me ask you this, because I do want to talk about some processes that you've seen with high level of effectiveness, just outside of marketing. But what I've seen, and I'm curious to see if this has been your observation, is that usually you'll hear me say false positive a lot of times, but it's this small victory that is un maybe unintentionally looked at as a big victory in tech. And that is like the tech founder or the person who can do tech, and they think that that's as good as it gets. Right. They're like, oh yeah, I set up my webinar, and oh yeah, I've done this. And I ran a podcast a few weeks back that said, my done isn't your done. And it's the essential experts play, right? Is like, hey, look, you can go and brush your teeth, but you're not gonna be as good as the dentist. But you could be good. Like you won't walk around with plaque. So what I'm witnessing is that people are now settling for just get it done instead of getting it done at a level that's sustainable and scalable. Has that been your experience, or have you seen something different in the marketplace from your vantage point?
So I've had quite a few clients come to me with processes or tech already in place that just wasn't working for them, and they paid a lot of
Yep.
money for it. And it was like, it didn't answer their needs. It was based
Yep.
off of, they took an expert in X tool,
Yep.
and so they put them in that tool, but they didn't really think of the customer experience. And I say customer in quotes because it's the employee experience. The
Yeah.
employees are the customers of the tech that you're using within your business.
Yep.
And, you know, there are three P's when we come to automate. People is one of them. People are super important. If you have an employee that cannot use the tech, and that tech is all set up to automate and to go and to run, but they're not using it, then what?
Yep.
That okay, then it's worthless.
Yep.
What that company had was, I'm just going to dive right into this case study
Yes.
because it's
Yes.
super interesting.
Okay.
Because this was a um, they're a marketing e-commerce marketing agency,
Okay.
and their project management was set up in ClickUp, and they had different tasks at different frequencies, but they were repetitive. So some were daily tasks, some were monthly tasks, bi-weekly tasks, bi-monthly tasks. Some were always on the first of the month, some were always on the 15th, right? And in ClickUp, it always said daily tasks. So they had tons of tasks that were like daily task, daily task, daily task, daily task. You had to go into it to see the checkbox. And then when you go in
Mm.
and click up, you don't really see, you need to know where to look to see what client this is for. The team wasn't using it. Obviously, it wasn't giving them what they needed. They weren't looking at, when I looked at my daily tasks, all I saw was daily tasks. I didn't see what I had to do. So the idea is to find a setup, whether within that tool or out of it. We try and set within the tool, obviously, first, because we don't want to shake the system too much.
Mm-hmm.
But find a setup that works in a way that, okay, it's a daily task. So we have a column for frequency. It's the task name, so they know what it is they're doing. There's a lot of data. What tool are they using to perform the task? How long it should take? All this information that we want to give them when they're doing the task. And then when they mark it as done, we want a new one to be created for the next day.
Mm. Instead of just a list of
Yeah,
daily.
because if they didn't do it yesterday, why is it going to help me that now they have it twice if it
Yeah.
automatically creates it? That's not going to help me.
I I read. So let's just slow down. Let me pause because you're saying things that are so good. First off, let me just reiterate. Everybody, did you hear Irit say your employees are the customer of the software that you're using in your business? Please write that down, quote it, tweet it, whatever the case is, because it's not just leads. It's not just leads.
Yeah.
And then this seems so simple, but this just talks to the sharp mind that knows what they're doing, which again, everybody, this is why this podcast exists. I want to introduce you all to the sharpest minds, the strategies, ways of getting things done that you wouldn't have even thought. Yes, the mere mortal would just have all the daily tasks. And then maybe because it's a date, you can go to the calendar view and maybe that does something. But listen to what Irit did. She said, well, listen, how about you just focus on the task at hand? And
Yeah.
once you complete that, then we'll spin up the next day's task. I can't, we can't we can't underestimate the power of that, because that one task undone, or maybe there's some overwhelm, and though it may have taken 5 minutes, that 5 minutes compounds
Oh,
over
yeah.
time when that person is not consistent, they're not focused. So anytime that you can insert something that creates just a little bit of efficiency, a little bit of focus, reduce a little bit more of human error. Maybe they clicked on the wrong one. I read, sometimes these task lists are not spaced out. So maybe they
Yeah.
thought they clicked on today and it was the next day, and then today's never got done, but they did tomorrow's. This is real stuff. And it's those
Oh,
little
yeah.
bitty things that just something as simple as having an expert like yourself come through and say, hey, look, how about we just do one and then let automation feed the next one and the next one
Yeah.
and the next one. So love it. I love that one. Keep going. Keep going.
Yeah. So it what's interesting, and I just want to build on what you said, is it takes 5 minutes. You're right. It takes them 5 minutes to say, oh, this is not the right task. Let's go into the other one. But 5 minutes times 5 employees, with each employee having 40 companies that they deal with and they want their
Yep.
success, you do the math.
Yep.
That's a lot of
Yep.
time that you're wasting. And that's just one example.
Yep.
So, and we made it easy for them. And I think this is what a lot of businesses miss, because when I
Mm-hmm.
talk to them and I ask them for their process, tell me, step one, step two, step three, step four. I'll go back to step one and I say, okay, break it down further, and then break it down even more, and break
Mm.
it down even more. And that's where most businesses get stuck without working with an expert. I'm not saying me, I'm saying
Yeah.
any expert,
Sure.
someone, even a coach, even a
Yep.
business coach that will help you delve deep into your process and understand the minute steps. We're not talking about marketing today, but in sales, how are your inbound leads coming to you? Because the first step is outreach. Okay, you have cold outreach, you have inbound.
Mm-hmm.
And then inbound, how are they coming to you? They could be coming to you from your website. They could be coming to you from LinkedIn. They could be coming to you from other social media, maybe WhatsApp, maybe email, maybe
Yep.
text messages. How are you dealing with all of these? You have to go in deeper to understand your processes. And I think that's where people miss, with their analysis of their own process, of their own workflow, what's not working.
Yeah. And we have a mutual friend, Brian Ragone of Puzzle app. And he was on the podcast. He was just on the podcast recently. And we talked about that ability to really understand what is in that process. What is it actually
Right.
doing? And of course, he has software to help map it and everything. But it becomes, you know what it is? It's the fact that if you don't know the space, you don't even know what to ask, right?
Correct.
So you don't even
Correct.
know to stop and say, "Tell me more." Wait, that step. Where are they coming from? Okay, well, wait a minute. If they're coming from Facebook, how are they seeing it? Oh, it's a
Yeah.
post. Whoa. A post where? Oh, I just post on my Facebook page every day. Oh, okay, hold on. Just I'm just trying to track it, right? Like literally slowing their brain down and understanding the process, because that's where the improvement takes place, right? It's in the
Yeah.
nuance. Well, more established businesses, it's more nuanced, but the starters, they need everything.
Well, but
So
as you're growing, sorry, but as you're
yes,
growing and you want to delegate to people or to tool, you have to know those nuances, because how are you going to
absolutely.
train someone or a tool if you don't know what those nuances are?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
So
absolutely.
I'll give you an example. I was working with another example. I was
Yes.
working with a recruiting agency, and they had proprietary CRM, a customer relationship management system that was developed sort of for them. I mean, it had other uses, but it was mainly for them.
Okay.
And when we spoke to the team, it turned out that they were exporting and doing most of the work in Excel and then copying and pasting it back.
Wow.
And I'm like, you paid for this piece of software. They developed it for you, and you're still working in Excel?
Yeah.
Something is wrong. You have to understand. Like, it was only until I started talking to each one of the different, they had three main parts to the process. And I spoke
Okay.
to the head of the departments of each of those three processes. And I saw how each one of them was working in Excel differently. Like the CRM was functioning for the first department 80%, for the second department, let's say 70%, and then for the third department, which was the most important, it was functioning at 40 to 50% of
Wow.
what they needed. So we redefined the workflow, and then we rewrote a specification document for the development team. I didn't actually do the development. I just do the tracking of the development, and I explained it to the dev team because
Yep.
this was proper coding. This is like above my pay grade, not
Yes.
where I want to go.
Yeah.
But there was a process to doing that as well, obviously. And the idea was to keep them within the tool, maximize the capabilities of the tool. Because if your employees are jumping from one tool to the next because you have a CRM and a project management tool and another tool for tracking data and another tool for tracking something else and another tool for scheduling, and you're not connecting them in any way, and they're doing a lot of copying and pasting and data input, a lot of time is being wasted, and efficiency is far from maximum.
Yeah. Absolutely. And the data input from a human is really the key breakdown. And I think again, we're talking about scalability, right? I read it's easy to get, again, that false positive that says, okay, two spreadsheets, just copy and paste this. Although I'll get
Yeah.
nervous just with that. But,
Because you know
right?
better. Because you know better.
Yes, yes.
Because
And
you know
here's
better.
the,
Yeah.
you know what? I can say this because it's you and I on this podcast. The true power of automation is the integrity that is maintained when data is passed and or
Oh,
handled, right?
yeah.
That's
Yeah.
we I read we can do this because it's you and I right now. We
Nobody
know
else
what
is listening.
right? Nobody else, just us,
Y'all
right?
don't listen to us now. Yeah.
Don't mind us. The industry says automate your marketing and sales and make millions, this, and that. But at its core, the value is that it's handling your data at a level of integrity no human being can.
Right.
And when you value that and honor that, you'll start to see how that unlocks things because I've
Yeah.
seen those big Salesforce enterprise applications where you do have a spreadsheet. And guess what? I read because it's so technical, there can be a space, an extra space in a cell that
Yeah.
throws all of the data off. A human
Yep.
eye can't even see it. People, when they
Right.
highlight stuff and hit copy, my eye is trained to say, oh, there's an extra space there.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But the average person, they're just going through. Go ahead. Yes.
Right. Right. No, the automation will catch that. So a good automation specialist, when
Yep.
they're setting you up with an automation for data, they're going to go, okay, wait, sometimes this is going to be with a space, sometimes it's going to be without. Let's trim it first for extra spaces. And then boom, we're done. It's understanding that. And that's I think the difference between DIY,
Mm-hmm.
like having someone do it themselves, and doing it for someone. When you hire a specialist, they know those errors can happen. There can be
Yeah.
that extra space.
Yep.
And especially in naming conventions, because naming conventions are super important in automations and, well, in workflow in general.
Yep.
My first job, oh, I have to tell you the story. My first job out of college was an assistant to an administrative assistant. Like, that's
Hmm.
how she was busy. I learned so much from her. She taught me
Mm.
all about naming conventions. And I mean, I'm 50, so you can imagine how far back this is. This is before the web, right? This is
Yeah.
years and
Yeah.
years ago. So this is someone who taught me the power of having a good naming convention just for organizational sake. Add automation and tech to that, it's a game changer. If you
Yes.
don't have like a simple naming convention that everyone listening today can start implementing, use the date in either 4 or 6 dates running backwards. Now, you in the US, you guys have a problem because you write the date completely wrong. No offense. You guys write month, day, year, which doesn't work. But if you write it, you know, year, month, day, day, and you sort it, you're always going to get the newest on the top or on the bottom, depending on how you sort it.
That's true.
And it's always the date is always going to be relevant. And then if you have multiple on that date, add other variables to the naming convention. Add an underscore with the initials, add an underscore with whatever is unique to that file. Understanding the power of a good naming convention means that you can then easily automate.
Absolutely. I'll say this. I've from my coding and developer days of old, is when you really learn how to value a naming convention. But even with that, I read out, let me raise my hand and let everyone know I have not always known which naming convention I want to use. I haven't all. Sometimes I'll start off with one and then I'll name another custom field something else and say, I like that. Now I'm looking at the previous 30 that don't follow follow that convention. And I'm like, do I update this? But that in itself speaks to the journey, right?
Yeah,
It's a living mechanism, the systems that we build and the things that we do.
yeah,
So even yesterday it may have made sense, but we've got new information. And now, oh, I see that these leads are actually need to be, when I sort them, this is the information I want to see. So let me change that. Right.
yeah,
Th- this is the belly of the beast here. This is the nature of it. And if you don't have
yeah,
somebody that knows how to do that, what you'll end up doing is spending a ton of dollars to the people who can sell themselves really well with low skill. and then you'll
Yeah.
hit your frustration, and then you'll come to somebody with high skill and you'll try to sell them low. And it's like,
Right.
no,
Right.
I'm
Oh,
sorry,
so
that's
and that's not going to work. I'm
it's
sorry.
not
These are
gonna
my
work.
prices, and I'm proud of my prices. It took me a while to get here, but I know the
Yeah,
value. And someone who's
absolutely.
been burned should know the value as well. I'll just take your example.
Hmm.
If you want to change your naming convention, if done right to begin with, the naming field is a formula field that's pulling in different values from different fields. And
Yes.
then when you change the naming convention from field A to field B, all you're doing is changing the formula.
Yep. Yep. Yes. I love now. You mentioned formula, so in my head, I went straight to Airtable, which now I'm in tool land. I'm in tool land. So,
Oh, oh, one
so
of my favorite tools. I love Airtable.
yes, I feel like I couldn't have this podcast or end it without asking you. We've talked about process flow and improvement outside of marketing, just little pointers, everyone. And if you're thinking, oh well, adding a task after one's completed, that's easy. You're missing it. You're missing the theory, the approach to it. The approach is, hey, show one thing. Once that one thing is finished, show the next. Now, where else can I apply that in my business? Right? So, naming convention. Where else can I apply this in my business? This is why we have these conversations. But I have to ask, I'm gonna keep it tame for today. And
Okay.
as of now, so I'm gonna help you out because I'm not gonna say all time ever greatest. As of right now, today in recording, what would you say your top three favorite tools are that you just find yourself in? It's almost like you log in, you're like, oh, I'm in the tool again. I didn't even realize I clicked. I'm always in here. Like, what are those three
So
that you really
Airtable has
enjoy?
got to be number one for me right now. It used to be Asana, by the way, before
Okay.
Airtable got as good as it did, because I love Asana. But Airtable is number one.
Got it.
They have different uses. Airtable's good enough for my business in my size.
Yep.
More complex businesses should look at Asana for project management. I say that with a caveat. It really depends on your needs. So just because I love a tool doesn't mean that you have to love it. And just because it's right for my business doesn't mean it's going to be right for yours. It integrates really well. It has a lot of native integration, which brings me to my second favorite tool, which is Zapier,
Mm,
because this is how I look at Zapier. Do you know the baby game where it's a box and at the top of the box on the cover it has different shapes? So one is a star, one is a square, and
yes.
one is a circle. You have to take
Yep.
the different pegs and
Yep.
put them
Oh yeah.
into the shape.
Hmm.
But when two pieces of software are speaking to each other, it's a round peg and a square hole, or a star into a triangle.
Yep.
It's not going to work. What Zapier does is it takes that square peg and it converts it into a language that Zapier understands. And
Hmm.
Zapier will then push it into the circle hole. And so it makes two pieces of software speak together. I think it is one of my all-time favorite tools. And I started working with Zapier 6, 7 years ago when they just had like to Hootsuite. It was like to
Yeah.
publish content onto social media. That
Yeah.
it's such a great tool, and I have to say to their benefit that they've recently changed their pricing model and they're coming towards their they're approaching their customers in a different angle. They realized that they couldn't compete with what Make was offering in terms of pricing,
Hmm.
although they take them hands down in terms of quality. And my third favorite tool, this is going to sound really weird, but
Hmm.
is my Gmail.
Oh, I didn't see that one coming.
I
Okay.
love Gmail. In general, the G Suite package, I don't
Hmm.
pay for it, by the way. I do pay. I pay for Google, but I don't have a G Suite package with everything that it entails because I don't need it. But sharing documents, sharing files, the ease of integration with
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
If somebody reaches out to you via email with a click of a button, you can push it to an automation to push it into your CRM just so simply. And it's so
Yeah.
much easier than we think. Plus, there are tools that sit on Gmail that I'm not a fan of, but they work for some of my clients, like Streak, which is a really great CRM that sits on Gmail. And so some people live in tasks, and so Streak gives you like advanced task, but you're still living in Gmail. And I find myself in Gmail all the time. My calendar is there, my email is
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
It integrates with everything so easily. Sounds weird because it's like a no-brainer tool, but yeah.
Great list, great lineup. I feel like it speaks to the seniority you have in the space. Um, and I think I could go with your top three easily because I don't know where I would be without Google Suite, Workplace, whatever they call it. You know, my only
Yeah.
frustration
Yeah,
is they
yeah.
keep changing the name. Um,
And the icons. And the
I
icons.
got
Yes.
it. Google
Yeah.
it. Make up your mind, Google. But
Yeah.
I have everybody listening knows I'm a huge fan of Airtable. I slowed down just a few days ago. We were talking about this in my membership community, and we were on a call, and I said, I pay more for Airtable than I pay for my CRM software, and I don't even
Yeah.
care. It's that
I use
valuable.
I use Airtable as my CRM software.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's how much I don't care. I like Pipedrive. I like Copper. Streak is a nice tool. I've used Close. I've integrated with Salesforce and with HubSpot. But on it, and Zoho, don't get me started on Zoho.
Mm-hmm.
But, I, can I just say one thing, please?
Yes.
For
Yes.
all that is holy, stay away from all in one tools. Sorry. I had to get that off my chest. An all in one
Yes.
tool is never going to be as good as a specific tool. And having said that, I don't have a specific CRM because I don't need to track emails.
Mm-hmm.
My um, filing system in my Gmail is so advanced and so set up in a way that works for me that I don't need all the emails coming into my CRM. I don't need all the communications. I don't have a team of 5 to 10 salespeople or more that
Right.
everybody needs to catch up on where everyone else is.
Yeah.
It's a team of three. So, we manage, and it's mostly me doing the sales right now anyway.
Yeah.
And if anybody needs access, they have access. So any important information is within Airtable for my CRM, and it integrates so seamlessly with everything.
Everything I read. Everything. Yes.
Oh, and if you think about it, you're at the end of the call, you fill out a form, an Airtable form, with the details of the lead that you just talked to. You hit submit, it pushes all the data into the CRM. What your offer is, how much you want to charge, if there's an
Mm-hmm.
automated price, if there's a manual price, a discount,
Mm-hmm.
whatever you want to put in there, the name, the company name, everything. And then you press a button and it sends the variables to a Google Doc and it creates a
Uh-oh.
proposal or a contract for you.
Uh-oh. Oh
I
wow.
mean, I've
Why?
just done a proposal in like 3 minutes after the meeting, and that sends an email. I don't need any other tools.
Listen, everybody. Okay, everybody is my witness. I'm trying to slowly segue my way out, but look at the can I read just open. I have to say, do you realize that she just scaled your proposal process? If you were listening as a sole salesperson in your business, I think it's easy to say the proposal is the bottleneck, right? I
Oh, yeah.
haven't I
Oh,
haven't
yeah.
even myself haven't met somebody who's if they have a complaint on sales, it's usually spinning up the proposal. Now, Irit just said she could after the call where everything is fresh on your mind, by the way, everything is
Yeah.
fresh. You just enter it in. Some of you may have the form up while you're on the call entering it in, right?
That's that's me. That's me.
Right.
Yeah.
Now
That's me.
afterwards, maybe you doctor up a little bit and you hit a button. That button, don't worry about how it'd be too advanced right now. Automation magic goes and sends the variables because what Irit has done is she's created a template because she's streamlined her proposal process. So we
Yeah.
can't even get there, everyone, if Irit is giving out custom proposals per sales call, per person, every time. Right?
Although, having said that, you can leave a lot of room for personalization.
Yes,
So it looks like a custom proposal, even though it's a template. Because you could say, okay,
absolutely.
my opening paragraph, I want that to write that on the spot. Why you would want to do that, I don't know, but that's a different discussion. But, again, there are ways to personalize it. You
Yes.
just have
Oh
to think
yeah.
about it. And most people don't realize it because they're afraid to let go of that control.
Yeah.
They're afraid to hand it over to tech.
Yep.
But what if, okay, then don't use the system for that case.
Yep.
Go
Yep.
back to the old way. Or create a second template and then choose which template to use from the dropdown. And that'll trigger the automation differently. Again,
Yes.
there's so many ways
So many
you can enhance on
possibilities.
this. So
Yes. I love it. And here's what I'll say to my automation experts out there who are just drooling at everything that we're talking about. Do not, and this, I always recommend this, don't try to build the whole system. Okay? Just build it for your single use case right now and improve it. You'll be able to keep adding to it over time. I can probably say your proposal template, your process is, it probably looks totally different than version 1, right? But if I, even
oh yeah.
myself, if I were to jump in and say, all right, I see everything Irit's doing, I do things different, right? There may be one thing that you're doing that I don't. So yes, get the big ideas, everyone. Irit said use a form. After your sales call, hit a button, let it generate a template. Your proposal is done for you. Okay. That's the skeleton. We got to put some meat on the bones and everything else.
Yeah.
But this is what, connecting with you, members, my membership, things like that. Speaking of which, a little birdie told me that there's something that you're working on. And I feel like it would be the best way to kind of close us out. People have been listening to you and they're like, oh my gosh, she knows what she's talking about. Where has she been all of my life? So, if that is the case and people just want to connect, get to know more about you, what you're working on, where can they go?
So if you want to know what I'm working on, the best place is LinkedIn. But if you want to see my work and what it is that I'm working on right now, it's actually a lot about that sales pipeline. It's I'm launching my sales pipeline accelerator group in 10 days, 11 days, and we teach the things that we talked about today. We teach how to define the process. We don't touch tech for 3 weeks. We do
Wow.
major pre work. We talk about your offer, we talk about your pricing, we help with these things, we talk about templates. And then in week 3, we start discussing software. I don't force a piece of software on you. If you like a piece of software, you use what you like because if you use what I like, you're not going to use it. Use what you like, definitely you're not going to use it. Software has to work for you. But the idea is we work through the different steps in the sales pipeline from that initial outreach until a client is won or, God forbid, lost. Happens to the best of us.
Yeah. Yeah.
We work through proposals and contracts and follow up emails. And around week 6, we start talking about automations and integrations. We don't touch it beforehand.
Nice.
And there are bonus sessions. We teach a little bit about Airtable. We talk about Zapier. We talk about scheduling tools. And I have a bonus session on that. We talk about Google Docs and how to create variables in a Google Doc. And the idea of a group program is the recordings of the sessions are you get them at the beginning of the week, but then every week there's a live Q&A hour, which sometimes lasts longer. Let's be honest, it's more than an hour.
Mm-hmm.
um, but it gives you accountability, and there's a Slack group that gives you that community, and you have to share your work on the Slack group. I mean, you don't have to, but you can.
Yeah.
So you get feedback from the group, which is not just me. It's brilliant minds of people like you. And there's a DIY version, which is just the recording, but the feedback that I've gotten from people who have done both is basically that accountability and the group feedback is just invaluable
Mm.
because we don't spend enough time working on our business. And now's the
Yeah.
time. Summer's coming, things slow down. Now's the time to work on your business.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really good. I just recently was talking with some friends of mine and was really expounding on the on and in and what on looks like versus in and things of that nature because it kind of got like just broadly talked about now. It's like work on your business, not in it, and nobody really goes to differentiate. Irit, when is your accelerator launching and how would one get access to it? Do they you want them to connect with you on LinkedIn or is there another means?
So the launch is May 27th. It's an application only because I only choose the people that are fit. There are 10 spots, and I think I had a couple applications come in, so I haven't reviewed them, but like first come, first person to apply, first person to get accepted.
Yeah.
Because we want very specific people. If you go to my website, day-by-day.biz, there's a blue banner at the top with an orange button. Just click on that, and it'll take you to the page that describes the program more in depth. And you
Great.
can see the rest of my work as well.
Yes, absolutely. Which I recommend everybody. The link is in the show notes right now. As you're listening, you can go to that link. And don't worry if you missed out on those initial 10. I'm pretty sure there's probably a wait list, and then you'll get in contact with them when the next cohort's ready.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Of course, you know me. Of course, there's going to be a wait list. I mean, seriously.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, listen, Irit, I can't thank you enough for jumping on and discussing automation and process improvement beyond just marketing, because you're helping give a holistic, realistic view, which should shape the approach and just get people off to the right start faster, which is my heart. I just want to help as many people as possible. I don't think people are making mistakes because they want to. They're just
Right.
trying to be in business the best way that they know how. So we're introducing a better way, especially when it comes to your processes and the scalability of your company. Irit, you've been extremely, extremely powerful and helpful in that extent. Thank you so much for joining today. I'm 100% pleased with how things have gone.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I had so much fun. I can talk to you for hours.
I know. We could go on. And I bet listeners, I bet you can listen a little while longer, right? But hey, as all good things, they must come to an end. And I want to thank each and every one of you all for tuning in today and listening. Those live on YouTube, thanks for getting the early access to this and your comments and feedback. And listen, everyone, as my shirt says, responsible automation is the destination. Okay. We don't want you to just put some tools together and start sending out emails and things of that nature. We want you to have a calculated approach to scalability, to whatever that looks like for you, whatever the right software is for you and your team, so that tech can no longer be a frustration point or a heavy burden, but actually be something that you look forward to, you're excited about. And just imagine with us all, what if you had a sales process similar to Irit? Afterwards, you fill out a form and the proposal is spent up. And some of you may be like, well, I don't do sales. What if you're a salesperson? What level of improvement would you get on your sales and the sales cycle, shortening that? So, anyways, Irit,
Yeah.
thank you again. Listeners, thank you all. As always, until next time, I see you all online. Automate responsibly, my friends.
Okay.